Part 3, War of the Kingdom of France. Meanwhile, the Empire of Sanctity and Holy Roman Empire are invading and attempting to conquer the Kingdom of France. The attack on France is swift and brutal, as the combined might of the Empire and the avatar of the Dragonflight rain down destruction upon the kingdom's cities and military strongholds. Emperor Marcus Aurelius personally leads his armies across the English Channel, landing on the northern coast and marching inland, while the avatar of the Dragonflight lends its elemental power to the attack, summoning walls of fire to protect the advancing forces and creating gusts of wind that uproot trees and send enemy soldiers flying through the air. The Kingdom of France, however, is not without its defenses. King Philip VI calls upon his own allies, including the Kingdom of England, for aid. England, still reeling from its own recent diplomatic negotiations, is slow to respond, but eventually sends a small force of knights and archers to aid their former enemies in holding off the Empire's advance. The battle lines are drawn across the verdant countryside, with the Empire of Sanctity and the Holy Roman Empire pressing forward against a determined resistance from the Kingdom of France, aided by the Kingdom of England and other smaller allies. As the conflict drags on, Emperor Marcus Aurelius begins to grow impatient. He realizes that his forces are stretched thin, and that the Kingdom of England is proving to be a more formidable adversary than he initially anticipated. He decides to take a gamble and send a message to King Edward III of England, offering him a truce and the opportunity to join forces against the common threat posed by the Kingdom of France. The message is delivered through a series of secret negotiations conducted deep within the forests of the Norman border. King Edward III, initially skeptical of the Empire's intentions, is intrigued by the offer. He sees the potential for a strategic alliance that could greatly strengthen his position against the other empires and kingdoms. After much deliberation, he agrees to meet with Emperor Marcus Aurelius in secret under the guise of negotiating a formal peace treaty. The location is chosen, a secluded clearing in the heart of the forest of Brosley and steeped in legend and rumor. As the two monarchs meet, they exchange formal greetings and discuss the terms of the treaty. Emperor Marcus Aurelius speaks of a new era of cooperation between their two kingdoms, one where they can put aside their differences and focus on the greater good. King Edward III listens carefully, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. Finally, the emperor presses the issue, asking the king to consider formally aligning their kingdoms against the Kingdom of France.
King Edward III leans back in his seat, steepling his fingers beneath his chin. He studies the emperor carefully, trying to gauge his intentions. After a moment, he speaks. "Your offer is most intriguing, Emperor Marcus Aurelius. However, I must be frank, I am not convinced that your intentions are entirely honorable. You have spent the better part of a year waging war upon my ally, the Kingdom of France. How can I trust that you would not do the same to me, were I to join forces with you?" The Emperor smiles reassuring. "I understand your hesitation, King Edward, but consider this: if we were to join together, our combined strength would be unmatched. We could bring an end to the bloodshed and restore peace to these lands. As for my intentions towards your kingdom, I give you my solemn word that they shall remain unchanged. The Empire of Sanctity seeks only to protect its interests and those of its allies. With your help, we could ensure that those interests are secure for generations to come." King Edward III nods thoughtfully, his expression unreadable. He takes a deep breath, steepling his fingers once more beneath his chin. "Your words are persuasive, Emperor Marcus Aurelius, but I must weigh them carefully. In the meantime, I will consult with my advisors and consider your proposal. May I have your leave to withdraw, that I might return to my kingdom and make my decision?" Emperor Marcus Aurelius bows his head in acknowledgement. "Of course, King Edward, take all the time you need. My forces and I shall remain at the ready, prepared to aid you in whatever decision you make. You have but to ask." King Edward III rises from his seat, inclining his head in a nod. "Thank you, Emperor Marcus. I will not keep you waiting any longer. Until we meet again, May the gods watch over us all. The two monarchs exchange one final, formal handshake before parting ways. The no longer distracted Empire of Sanctity and Holy Roman Empire continues their invasion and attempted conquest of the Kingdom of France. The Kingdom of England, under the rule of King Edward III, continues to defend their ally, the Kingdom of France. The tides of war ebb and flow as both sides engage in fierce battles, strategic maneuvers, and skirmishes. In the meantime, Emperor Marcus Aurelius and his forces remain vigilant, ready to aid King Edward III should he choose to accept the offer of alliance. The Forest of Brocliant, where their secret meeting took place, continues to be a source of legend and intrigue for both empires, as the war between the Empire of Sanctity and Holy Roman Empire and the Kingdom of France rages on. King Edward III finds himself constantly torn between his loyalty to his ally and his desire for a strategic advantage. He ponders the Emperor's words, weighing the potential risks and rewards of such an alliance. Meanwhile, the Forest of Brocliant, a place steeped in legend and mystery, continues to be a source of intrigue for both empires. The ancient druids who once dwelt there are said to have left behind powerful artifacts and knowledge that could tip the balance of power in the war. King Edward III, unable to shake the feeling that the Emperor might not be entirely trustworthy, secretly sends a small expedition into the forest to search for these artifacts. The mission is led by Sir Lancelot, a seasoned knight with a reputation for bravery and cunning, accompanied by a small band of loyal knights and a druid advisor named Merlin. Sir Lancelot ventures deep into the forest, facing treacherous terrain and supernatural threats at every turn. Meanwhile, the war between the Empire of Sanctity and Holy Roman Empire and the Kingdom of France rages on. On the battlefield, King Edward III and his forces make significant gains, pushing the enemy back and saving several key strongholds from falling into their hands. The Emperor, impressed by King Edward's military prowess and strategic thinking, begins to reconsider his earlier doubts about the king's loyalty. Emperor Marcus Aurelius then suddenly demands a forceful annexation of the Kingdom of England for breaking their alliance, and briefly siding with the Kingdom of France. King Edward III, feeling betrayed by the Emperor's sudden demand, decides to seek aid from the one person he believes can help him, Merlin, the druid advisor accompanying Sir Lancelot in the Forest of Brocliant. Merlin, using his knowledge of the ancient artifacts hidden within the forest, manages to forge a powerful alliance between the Kingdom of England, the Kingdom of France, and the Druids of Brocliant. Emperor Marcus Aurelius then reveals another power of the sacred relic, using it to summon an unstoppable army of undead warriors from the battlefield. These skeletal warriors, once human soldiers who died in battle, now serve as the Emperor's unyielding foot soldiers. The tide of the war begins to turn once more as the undead army marches across the battlefield, slaughtering King Edward's forces and pushing them back toward their capital. King Edward III, desperate for aid, sends word to Sir Lancelot and Merlin, hoping that the Druids' knowledge of the ancient artifacts will once again prove to be their salvation. Sir Lancelot and his men, having successfully recovered several powerful artifacts from the Forest of Brocliant, arrive at the battlefield just as the Empire of Sanctity and Holy Roman Empire is about to breach the walls of London. Using the ancient relics, Sir Lancelot and Merlin manage to summon a legion of mythical creatures from the forest unicorns, Pegasi, and dragons. These ethereal beasts, once thought to exist only in legend, now soar across the battlefield, their hooves striking down the undead army, and their breath incinerating the skeletal warriors. The tide of the war begins to turn once more as King Edward's forces, bolstered by the aid of the mythical creatures, launch a counterattack against the Emperor's undead army. Emperor Marcus Aurelius then sends in the Avatar of the Waters, the Avatar of the Winds, and the Avatar of the Dragonflight II. guarantee victory against the Kingdom of France, the Kingdom of England, and the Forest of Brocliant. These elemental avatars unleash their powers upon the battlefield, summoning mighty storms, twisting the winds into deadly whirlwinds, and commanding the very elements themselves to aid in the destruction of their enemies. King Edward III, realizing that he is vastly outnumbered and outmatched by the elemental avatars, makes a desperate gamble. He sends word to the Druids of Brocliant, asking them to send their most powerful magic users to aid in the fight. The Druids, impressed by King Edward's bravery and determination, send their finest adepts, who begin to cast powerful spells upon the battlefield. Emperor Marcus Aurelius then casually uses the sacred relic to steal the magic of all of the Druids for himself. As their powers are siphoned away, the elemental avatars grow even more powerful, and the tide of the battle begins to turn decisively in the Empire's favor. With their magic diminished, King Edward III and his allies find themselves struggling against the onslaught of elemental fury. Sir Lancelot, desperate for a way to turn the tide of battle, decides to take matters into his own hands. He steals one of the Emperor's sacred artifacts, an ancient amulet that grants the wearer control over the elements. Using this artifact, he is able to summon a single, powerful elemental of his own, a dragon. This dragon, under Sir Lancelot's command, flies through the air, breathing fire and raising the enemy forces with unparalleled fury. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, tired of their interference, personally kills Sir Lancelot and Merlin and takes the sacred artifact back, and then, simply by using it, finally finishes off the Kingdom of England and all of its remaining hopes. The Forest of Brocliant, however, remains. Though much of it has been destroyed by the war, the ancient Druids who survived have vowed to rebuild it and restore it to its former glory. They have also sworn to keep the location of the sacred relic hidden, lest it fall into the wrong hands once more. Emperor Marcus Aurelius, though, swiftly uses an artifact to gain complete and total control over the Forest of Brocliant and the Druids, which dwell within it and integrated into the Empire of Sanctity, leaving only the Kingdom of France to conquer, which will fall swiftly. With the forest under his thumb and the Druids at his command, Marcus Aurelius begins to unlock the secrets of the sacred relic, harnessing its power for his own twisted purposes. He uses the relic to raise an army of undead Druids, bound to serve him until the end of time, and sends them forth to conquer the known world. Firstly finishing the conquest of the Kingdom of France, Emperor Marcus Aurelius then begins to expand his empire, setting his sights on new lands across the sea. He commissions the construction of a massive fleet of warships, using the ancient relics to summon elemental creatures to protect them from harm. The Druids of